In today's Pittsburgh dining dish, we're talking about the popularity of pizza, especially enjoyed by so many this time of year during Lent.
And during the pandemic, pizza sales, we know, are way up because it's convenient. It is low cost, and it is certainly a comfort food. And with so many pizzerias to choose from in our area and so many styles, square, round, thin crust, deep dish, we asked food writer Hal B. Klein to dish with us about pizza. So first off, thank you for joining us, Hal. I love the assignment that you had on this. I'm kind of envious of it. And how did pizza become so popular in America? Like, when did that happen?
So pizza, I think, it's one of those things that we think pizza's always been here, right? Because there's a pizza shop on every corner. It's easy to get delivered. But until really at like the mid-1940s, pizza wasn't a thing except for New York City, New Haven, maybe little bits of like New Jersey up to Boston. And then the first pizza place in this area, so it basically comes about, you have people serving in Italy during World War II and coming back home and realizing like, whoa, my mom or my grandma made these things that everyone's lining up for in Italy in her house. Maybe I could sell it. And at the same time, you get this innovation with gas oven technology. So those pizza ovens that you see places everywhere. All of that happens around the same time. And so in our area, this starts in 1945 in Steubenville at a place called DeCarlo's Pizza. Someone named Primo DeCarlo served in Italy. His father was an Italian immigrant, owned a bake shop, owned a bakery, and was like, wait, I can maybe sell this. And it was a hit right away. It was one of those things that it was like, people were really interested. But it was so new that when Primo and his brother Galdo opened their second location in Wheeling in 1949, the newspaper story had to describe what pizza was, and it characterized it. This is my favorite thing, as the poor man's cheesecake.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's like, that's how new it was, and it really isn't until the 50s that things really start going. So they were really ahead of their time with the stuff that they were doing, and they're still around, which is amazing.
That is awesome, and I have to try this place now. I don't know that I've tried.
I have been there on a story once. Yes,
and it's probably amazing,
delicious.
Oh, go ahead, Hal.
So they created a style that this style. When we talk about what is Pittsburgh pizza, I think one of the things I really decided in the story is that we don't have a specific style. I think the things that people think of as Pittsburgh pizza is really just a version of American gas oven pie, round, sort of a little bit thicker than a New York pizza, sweeter sauce. But we have all these unique pizza makers. And so the Ohio Valley style is the one that's the most famous, I think, around. It's the one, so I think people say they put raw cheese on it, or cold cheese, but it's actually room temperature cheese. And so it goes on after it's pulled from the crust or pulled from the oven. And it just starts to like melt on the pizza, and it becomes this like, when you put it in a box and let it steam for a minute or two, it becomes this like liminal thing where it's like the milk fat just sort of like begins to liquefy, but it's not all like greased out like it is on a typical pizza. And it's one of those things that it gets a lot of hate from people that haven't tried it, maybe that have just seen photos of it, but it's so good, and it's something that everyone should try.
So what's the Mon Valley red top?
This was one of the inspirations for the story. So I found it for the first time at a place called Anthony's Italiano, which is down in Main Street, Donora. And Anthony DiDonato and one of his friends who he used to work for in the 80s were like just really kind of interested in this idea of Chicago deep dish pizza. But they didn't go to Chicago. They didn't have the right pans for it. So they just kind of played around on their own and created basically what is the same thing as like a stuffed pizza. So it's a crust, then it's cheese, then it's another crust that's a little bit thinner than the first crust, and then a layer of sauce with some grated Romano that goes on top of it.
Yum.
And it's, it's amazing. It's, I say in the story, it's sort of like if pizza called up lasagna and said, hey, you want to meet me part way?
That's what this is.
That's kind of what you get. It's amazing. It's so delicious.
All right, so quickly, there's a third type, and it's kind of, you just put it as other. Tell us about that.
So that's what really makes the region so special, is there are all these different other styles that are around. So Nuzaki's, which makes a sponge pizza pie up in Monessen in a house that the guy who owns it, his grandma started making it in 1952 from a recipe that she had from time immemorial, I'm sure. You're looking at Frank's, which is in Ambridge near Police Station Pizza, which is one of my favorite Ohio Valley style pizzas. And, Frank Allo, bought an oven in the 1950s. They sent him to New York, and the person that taught him how to make it said, you got to put the cheese on before the sauce. So similar to a red top, but without that second layer of crust, because it'll keep the cheese nice and melty. It'll keep the crust crisp. And then we've got other places like Joyo's that everyone knows out in Westmoreland County with that flaky pastry-like crust.
Yum.
And, you're even seeing this today. There are some Indian restaurants that are now using a pizza crust as a base for toppings from India. So it carries on this long, rich tradition of immigrant cuisine into the modern era.
It's so good. You've given me inspiration for my family's Pizza Fridays.
I just want everyone to, get out and explore and eat good pizza. It's such a treat to have, right? And when
really
it's done right, and when it's done by people that have been doing it in these family businesses since the 40s, 50s, 60s, what a celebration.
It's wonderful. Hal, thank you so much for talking with us. Thank you for your thorough research on this report. We appreciate
Thank you.
it.
It was, again, as I say often on the show, it was hard reporting, but someone had to do it.
Someone had to do it.
And so I did it.
We're glad you did. All right, we want to thank Hal B. Klein, food writer, Pittsburgh food writer, and regular PTL contributor, and he's made us all hungry right now.
Yes, he has.